So it looks like Amazon has made it a habit to ask pretty much everyone applying for a senior position to prepare some sort of essay to send by email just before the on-site interview. And while details about this writing assignment are scarce, I was able to find 2 such examples. And also it looks like in the case of a product manager, they simply asked them to produce a writing sample. And there are also reports of people being asked to simply develop on a behavioral question that was asked during the phone interview. And to give you a bit of a context on why would Amazon ask anyone to produce some writing samples just before the on-site interview? I mean, are they trying to follow any other business, or is this some standard HR procedure? And probably the best way to understand this is to look at Jeff Bezos' first shareholder letter that he wrote all the way back in 1997, where he introduced many of the defining concepts of what Amazon is today, such as thinking long-term or obsessing over customers versus looking at the competitors, or type 1 and type 2 decisions, which essentially means to take decisions a lot faster if they're easily reversible. And the second important aspect here is that Amazon has one of the best writing cultures that I know, which basically means that in order to get any sort of buy-in for some business project, you would have to produce a 6-page narrative, by their words, into which you would have to develop on your specific requests, and this would be basically a team project. And furthermore, any business meeting at Amazon starts with taking around half an hour to study that 6-page narrative and then discuss around it. And last but not least, Amazon banned PowerPoint presentation quite a while ago. Alright, so now that we have a bit of a context over why Amazon is asking for these things, let's look a bit over the structure that such an assignment should follow. And in terms of length, it should be no longer than 4 pages, with apparently 2 pages being the ideal size. And then it should of course be in a narrative format, which basically means should be a story. And as every story, this video included, it should follow a given structure. And here is an example narrative structure. In the past it was like this, then something happened, so now we should do this, so the future might be like this. Now, to be noted here that if we take a closer look, this very much resembles to the STAR method that you probably heard of while preparing for the telephone interview and for the interview questions in general. Now, when it comes to composition, here is some advice, some keywords and some concepts that you may want to consider while writing it. And the first one is that despite Jeff Bezos being quite outspoken of taking the most important decisions using gut feeling over data, Amazon is very much a data-driven business, a metrics-rich business. So I would keep that in mind while writing anything about results, for example. Then the second is that when choosing what type of story you should develop on, try to pick a story that's as recent as possible, and ideally it should be also related with the tech environment, because the idea is here to improve your chances to win over your audience. Then be specific. Try to include as many names, dates, titles in your example, because answers with more details are perceived as more truthful and essentially paint a better picture about you. Then make sure that you answer every part of the question, because one of the worst mistakes that you could do is to skip answering part of that question. And finally, be sure that your story solves a problem. Ask yourself, what problem are you trying to solve here? Then probably the best place to look for keywords to include in your example is Amazon's 14 leadership principles, with the important note of you making sure that you are connecting to the most relevant of those principles, the most relevant, especially because you are most likely applying for a senior role. Another interesting concept here is the Amazon Flywheel, which essentially describes how Amazon sees growth inside its business. And the way you could use this is to find correlations between your story and this one. For example, to to connect customer obsession with growth as a result. And if you have time, pretty much every shareholder letter that Amazon released contains some nuggets that you may find useful to your own story. Now, last but not least, typos are your worst enemy, and even if they are not a disqualifier, believe me when I tell you that HR people do not particularly enjoy reading stories with typos. So these are the main highlights that I believe could help you in case Amazon asks you to write an essay, and I hope you found this helpful, and thank you very much for watching.